Everyone, welcome to Daily Revelations. Thanks for joining me. And as we're just going through the Bible and looking at what does it have to apply to our daily lives, and what is God teaching me every day as I spend time in His Word. And I'm just sharing that with you as I'm going through the Bible. Through a biblical theology class. This is, as I told somebody the other day, this is probably my sixth time through the Bible. I've read it cover to cover 5 times, but we're kind of going through it in a little different manner and not reading all of it, but it's hitting on the main parts, and that's what's important. And so I'm sharing that with you and just what God reveals to me through each of those days and lessons. So today I was in Exodus 22 and 23, and something that popped out to me as I was in those chapters was that God is laying down the ordinances, which I talked about a little bit yesterday. And in those ordinances, He says, when this happens, this is what needs to be done to bring restitution to that relationship, or to however something was compromised because of what was done. And so basically, this is how to restore what had been unrestored and went out of the perfection or close to perfection we can get here on earth in living in harmony with one another and with us and God. So that's where that came from. And as I was reading through this, something I wrote down that brought me back to some parenting principles that I used with our children was that we often can ask for forgiveness and say, "Will you forgive me?" And we think in our modern day of asking for forgiveness that's going to bring restitution. And God, in His wisdom, showed us so long ago that restitution requires work. It requires doing something. And that forgiveness is only one part of that there has to be something else done to show that there's a forgiveness of heart. And so when you forgive somebody, you actually don't wipe the slate clean. You prepare the way for the slate to be wiped clean by one of 2 things. And that's why I'm talking about the difference between forgiveness and grace. The one way is to repay or to do something, and that's what restitution is. When someone forgives and says, I'm going to take that burden as the one that's owed, and say the restitution has been paid, or I will pay it myself, that is what grace is. And that's exactly what the cross is. God and us, there's this division of sin, and restitution has to be paid for sin. That is the righteousness of God and how it works. No matter how much we want that to be that way or not, it is. That's the reality of it. God is perfect, and He cannot intermingle with sin. And there needs to be something that bridges that gap, that restores that relationship, and it is a restitution type of arrangement. And God lays that out in these ordinances for how man can do that, and also how man can do that with Him through sacrifices. And that just leads up to what the cross stands for and why we need it. Because without that restitution, that payment of sin by the perfect Lamb, which is Jesus, we cannot come to God. And just like the Israelites long ago, they had these sacrificial lambs. It was this temporary version of what the cross did permanently. And so yes, forgiveness is the first step towards healing something that sin has caused a division in. But restitution is required in order for the playing field to be evened again, and for that relationship to come back together. With our kids, and how I related this to parenting was when our children did something, or if I did something to sin against them, I had an anger issue, so that was oftentimes a lot of my issue as well. We would ask for forgiveness, but then we would also do a re-honor job for that other person that we had harmed, because that relationship needed to be restored, not just a bypassing, oh, forgive me, I didn't mean to do that. Well, whether we meant to do it or not, we hurt and we broke that relationship apart, and we need to work towards making it whole again, not just trying to patch it up with our words. That only works for so long. And so those restoration, those re-honor jobs that we called in our household were transforming to us. And every once in a while, I would turn around to a child and I'd say, today grace is paid, your restitution. And so they understood the difference between that. It meant I was taking upon myself, if they had hurt me, to restore that relationship with them and to make that whole without their need to do anything. And that's really what the cross is too. If we accept that, and they had to accept it. If they felt too guilty, they would do a job anyways, because that guilt laid so heavily on them. And isn't that what we also do when we try to do good works to make up for the sin that we have in our lives? Restitution is not about good works. It's not about paying the price of the sin. It's about bringing us back together. It's about restoring the relationship, not about the ability to perfect ourselves. There's two different things. So anyways, hopefully that makes sense to you about how that difference falls in place. And thank you for joining me for Daily Revelations. Sorry about the noise. We're at our beach house and people are making lunch and it's a little loud. So anyways, thanks for joining me, and I will see you again tomorrow on Daily Revelations. Thanks.